Welcome to the new JFK show, and if you can believe it, it's show number 199. So we've been doing this quite a while. We've been having Larry and Don with us for many years now, so we're going to just...
Yeah, but it's still a new show, though.
It's still a new show.
That's right.
We're going to keep rolling down the road. And, I'll say it once again. Nobody beats Larry Rivera when it comes to new research. In fact, he's got a little bit for us tonight, so we're going to turn it over to Big Larry Rivera.
Oh, come on, Gary, man. You're too much. I want to revisit something that we did in July of last year, 2017, and it had to do with the blowout in the back of the head at Zapruder frame 343. Jim and I wrote an article in Veterans Today back in, I believe it, January of 2015. So this has already been going on for 3 years, more than 3 years. And when we first wrote about this, and I published it in my book, in the chapter on David Mantick's book and everything. And, you know, it's incredible that now it's come to my attention that somebody in some forum, I'm not going to mention names or anything like that, okay, has posted a very interesting rebuttal.
A rebuttal?
Yeah.
You're shitting me.
Yeah, you're gonna love this one, Jim. You know, I know you're gonna go off on this one. I know you can hardly wait to see this.
A rebuttal?
Yeah.
I mean, Larry, that was cast iron, man. I mean, Jesus, you were brilliant to see that Jackie's glove just gave the perfect background to define the defect.
I know.
Are they also claiming you can't see it in frame 374 and 375?
No, you're gonna love this one, Jim. You know, but you know, I'm treating this in a very scholarly and professional manner. You know,
I can't wait to hear who the author of this.
Yeah. Don't worry. Me and Don will curse him out. You can act all scholarly. We'll curse him out.
So I'm just gonna do a screen.
You're gonna keep the name of the author in abeyance?
Oh, come on. No, of course, you know. Well, it was in a forum, you know, I'm not really...
Well, they got a name on the forum, right?
Well, it's a forum where I posted this information back in when we first discovered it in 2015. And apparently it's been hanging there, you know, that thread has been hanging up there, you know, for 3 years, more than 3 years. And somebody all of a sudden said, oh, wait a minute. I see,
we need a rebuttal.
Yeah, it says, oh, wait a minute, that's not what I see. I think I see this other thing, you know. And but anyway, to give the audience a background on this, we covered this right here, July. Can you guys see my screen here?
Yeah.
Yep. You want me to read it?
Yeah. Well, sure. We'll do the whole thing if you want. You know, just but at the bottom, what I did was I added an addendum here. Let's see if you guys can. Yeah, update 613.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, because it's good that this rebuttal came out, because it made me go and look at the other adjacent frames surrounding frame 343.
Yeah.
And it was just overwhelming, Jim. You know,
well, there's not a lot of text here, and it's good for newbies, somebody who doesn't know this argument already, to have the whole laid out before them. So let's begin.
And not only that, I have also added, which I think is something that we missed, and it would have made our research a lot more complete, which had to do with Jackie's Warren Commission testimony. And I think it's very interesting. It's going to be very interesting.
Good. Zapruder frame 343. In January 2015, Jim Fetzer and I published new information on Zapruder frame 343, where I, Larry Rivera, discovered the magnitude of the blowout in the back of the head of JFK, shown here in shocking detail. This, of course, complemented Jim's discovery of the same blowout in frame 374, with the difference being that this one was much closer to Zapruder's camera. The image was obtained from a video called The Murder of JFK, A Revisionist History. Here is an excerpt.
Yeah, let me run this real quick here.
19 seconds.
Yeah. It's only 19 seconds.
No audio? You don't want to? Yeah, we don't need the audio, but.
Yeah, this is the frame that was shown in that video.
Yeah.
And that that's where I obtained it from. When I saw that right away, I said, wait a minute, and notice how clear this frame is, and I think we mentioned this. This might have been one of those Grodin prints that
Well, it's so conspicuous, Larry, that ought to be his head. You ought to be able to see, unless he's got a transparent head, you ought to be able to see her glove like that.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
But this frame right here, it seems like, it's so clear. If you look at Costella and so many other versions of the Z film on the internet, this is by far, and I'm going to just scroll down here, the screen cut, by far, because you can see Jackie's, almost her features and everything and her reaction.
Yeah.
And this is quite a dramatic image here, Jim. I think this is one of the most images that I've ever seen, because it really captures her immediate reaction to seeing this massive blowout.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what this guy's got to say about that.
At that time, I manually outlined the defects.
Yeah, here, and remember we did this with the little inset here.
Yeah, we got the black and white thing coming next. See, and Larry is modest when I say he's the best JFK researcher that there is, and he's over here just spelling it out.
Photoshop has various filters which we can use to enhance and study images. This one is called the emboss filter.
Yeah, and when we look here at the area of the defect, already
isn't that amazing?
We're already starting to see a lot of definition here.
Could some of his work done, with the back of the head stuff that we have in Men Who Killed Kennedy 6, why is his name escaping me?
Oh, Nigel Turner.
No. He's a director. I'm talking Wilson. Is it?
Tom Wilson. Yeah, Tom Wilson.
Tom Wilson. Could he have just been using some of these filters?
No, because he used this other technique that he obtained at the company where he worked for.
That was his claim, but John and I, Costello, who has a PhD in electromagnetism, we could never figure it out. And in fact, they asked me to endorse the book when it came out, and I couldn't do it because we weren't capable of establishing it was even possible.
Exactly. If you look at his images, you can't really tell. You can't really follow, what he's trying to tell, because he gives you the Mormon photograph and how he peeled away all the layers of the onion and everything. And then and you say, wait a minute, I can't see what he's saying there.
This, on the other hand, is devastating. I mean, look at the size of that hole.
Yeah.
Now we go down, and this filter is called the Find Edges filter.
Yeah, but going back to the emboss, when you. The definition of emboss is raised, correct? So if this were to be embossed here, if this were her glove on top of his head, and I'm probably giving away what the other argument
would be the other way around.
It would be the other way around, exactly. Okay, but the dimension, the depth perception, obviously here indicates that the glove is behind the head. So
Sure.
And we went and applied other filters, to.
The filter is called the Find Edges filter. There's further proof, Larry, of the very point you're making.
Yeah, just by looking at the image, the digitized image, as it is interpreted by Photoshop. That's all.
I love this. I also worked a little with the image in Blender, extruding the image after I had imported it as a flat plane.
And Blender is a 3D imaging.
Wonderful. I love it, Larry.
You guys have seen, all the work that we have done in Blender, replicating, reenacting the plaza in 3 dimensions, and how Blender readily lends itself to, this type of work. And interpreting, again, what is on a flat plane and giving you a perspective of how it would look, in 3 dimensions. And so, this is, like I said, we did this back in 2015. I'm amazed that it took them 3 years to
figure out an answer.
Yeah.
A common tool used in Photoshop to enhance and define the outline of components of a photograph is the magic wand tool. We can define this as Photoshop on autopilot, where the software works independently by identifying changes in pixel patterns. When we click on the area in question, this is the result.
Yeah, and this here where I have the mouse.
Look at that. And it's defining it itself, Larry.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
Photoshop.
I mean, that's a computer program defining the very area you had defined yourself.
That's right. Here, you know, this is like hands-free, you know, no,
Right.
no hands, you know. So
Once we have our outline, we can fill it in by stroking the outline.
yeah, and here I did it in turquoise blue, you know, to differentiate, you know, the colors, you know.
Excellent. The results closely match the work that was done manually. Indeed. Gradient maps. Today, however, I figured it'd be nice to see what Photoshop could do in the area of gradient map studies of the image. First, the definition of gradient mapping. Gradient mapping is in Photoshop is applied using an adjustment layer. The gradient map adjustment layer alters the image by applying a gradient map to the image. Unlike a gradient fill, which fills an area by using a linear or radiant blend of colors, the gradient map applies a gradient by using the lightness and darkness values in the image as a map for how the gradient colors are applied.
I just want to interject here quickly. You remember when I did this after when we did the Fred Noonan overlays, remember, with Amelia Earhart? Remember when that photograph came
Yeah,
out?
I remember that show. Yeah.
Yeah, it came out last summer. And one of the techniques that they used in that program was gradient maps. So I figured, well, let me apply that to this photograph.
It's a good idea, Larry. Very good idea.
And yeah, so, you know, I using the same technique. This is what we came up with. All right.
We begin by stripping the image of all color. Okay, so there it is, bare bones.
Right.
Our first gradient map rendering is a positive image.
Yeah, I mean, this is like
Very interesting, haunting.
Yeah.
And this is the negative version of the above. Wow, love it.
Yeah.
All of these tests confirm the anomaly in the back of what was left of JFK's head. There's just no way to deny it, or so we thought. Welcome to right-click on any of these images and run the test for yourself.
Yeah. So Larry, up until now, how many people have replicated your work?
On this?
Yeah.
Nobody. I mean, I don't see, I don't see how you can refute this, Gary, but, you know, then again.
But you've always, presented.
I was amazed, that this person, sent me an email and it said, look, you should take a look at this, and lo and behold, it happened to be in response to my posting at this forum, which I did, like I said, more than 3 years ago. It was, I believe, January, February of 2015, so, and this is what the person said.
Okay, update 13 June 2018. This post came up on a JFK forum trying to explain away my research on frame 343. By the way, that's today. No, today. Yeah, that's today, Larry.
Yeah.
We're pretty current. I just had to look at today's paper to verify it,
Yeah, in case you don't know, we're a current events driven.
I can see the possibility of it, but my first impression is that it seems from these frames that Jackie's left hand is actually on the back of JFK's head. Watch the motion of his head body in connection with the motion of her hand. It appears as if she is almost pushing him forward as she is moving to the trunk. Let me just say right off the bat, this guy wouldn't begin to make this argument unless he wanted to suppress what I found in 374 and 375.
Well, let's go back to the original, unretouched image right here, Jim.
Yeah.
What he's saying here is that her hand
was on top of his head.
On top of his head, and that's what is blocking his head, and
so what's this, a fur cuff on her glove there, that hair, that brown stuff? Actually hair, but
she's going to use his head as leverage.
Where is his head, by the way? Has it disappeared into his shoulder?
Yeah. Well,
this is truly contrived, Larry. They wanted to have an answer.
I know. Obviously, to me, I agree with that.
Embarrassingly bad. I can't wait to hear who did this because they have outed themselves as an op. Fair enough. No one is infallible, and the best part of research and publishing work is to be able to react in a scholarly manner to someone in disagreement and provide documentation in support of your thesis. Let's begin with Jackie's suppressed Warren Commission testimony.
Oh, yeah.
Reference to wounds deleted. Jackie Kennedy's Warren Commission testimony was a joke. It covered all of 3 pages. You mean what they published was a joke? On page 180, right when she was describing JFK's massive head wound, the Warren Commission decided to suppress her testimony with this notation, reference to wounds deleted.
And that image that I'm showing you, Jim, right there is the exact, that is a facsimile of her Warren Commission testimony. Okay,
Well,
that is exactly from the Warren Commission.
Well, I know very well what she said. They claimed they deleted it on grounds of privacy, but there was no privacy. She said from the front, just fine, but then he had a terrible time holding his skull and brains together at the back of his head. And of course, from the front, he looked fine. That meant he wasn't shot in the back of the head, which would have come out the front. He wouldn't have looked just fine. Particularly from the way he was lying, she would have been talking about the right temple area in the immediate, inner lap.
I love it, Jim. You have it memorized.
Well, you have to, right? Finally, I remember a voice behind me or something, and then I remember the people in the front seat or somebody finally knew something was wrong in a voice yelling, which must have been Mr. Hill.
Get to the hospital.
Didn't she mean Greer? Get to the
about
hospital, or maybe it was Mr. Kellerman in the front seat, but someone yelling, I was just down holding him. Who would be Hill?
Clint
Hill.
Oh, yeah, sure, okay. But, I mean, he'd already rushed up. Yeah. In 1972, this suppressed testimony was finally released. Serious JFK research picked up on it immediately, realizing the importance of what she said. This is how J. Gary Shaw and Larry Ray Harris dealt with it in their 1976 book, Cover Up. Testimony suppressed. All of the witnesses who gave testimony contradictory to the official version of the assassination could not be ignored. Even in this situation, though, the commission had an out. When you can't ignore it, hide it. I was trying to hold his hair on. There was one witness the commission could not ignore, one whose testimony they dared not alter. When this witness made statements that conflicted with the official story of one man firing from behind the motorcade, that portion of her testimony was deleted from the printed testimony in the hearings. The widow of President Kennedy should have been one of the first witnesses called by the commission, and her questioning should have been thorough and extensive. Instead, Jacqueline Kennedy did not appear before the commission until 7 months after the day she was splattered with her husband's blood and brains. Even though she was the nearest witness, her testimony takes up a scant 3 pages of the 7,909 pages of testimony in volumes 1 through 15 of the hearings. Mrs. Kennedy was readily and willingly relating her traumatic experiences of November 22nd to Earl Warren and J. Lee Rankin, at the point in her printed testimony where she was apparently about to describe her husband's fatal head wound. The notation, reference to wounds deleted, is interjected. Isn't that amazing? In April
I love the tongue-in-cheek way that J. Gary Shaw and Larry Ray Harris,
Yeah, they're good guys. In April 1972, the National Archives declassified that portion of her testimony. Mrs. Kennedy, I don't remember anything. I was just down like that. Finally, I remember a voice behind me or something, and then I remember people in the front seat finally, or somebody knew something was wrong, and a voice yelling, which must have been Mr. Hill, get to the hospital, or maybe it was Mr. Kellerman in the front seat, but somebody yelling, but just holding him. The following sentences are those omitted from her statement in volume 5 of the hearings. I was trying to hold his hair on, but from the front there was nothing. I suppose there must have been, but from the back you can see, you were trying to hold his hair on and his skull on. Yeah, the way I read it, it was more authentic as having come directly from her.
Oh, yeah. I love
this has been paraphrased.
Yeah.
These 4 sentences, we are told, were deleted for reasons of taste. Yet doctors and other witnesses gave much more detailed and graphic descriptions of the president's massive head wounds. They were deleted because of the statement, I was trying to hold his hair on, but from the front there was nothing. suggests the rear portion of JFK's skull was blown out, consistent with description by Parkland Hospital doctors of a large gaping wound and indicative of an exit wound caused by a shot fired from in front of the motorcade.
And of course, Jim, you have published on this, I don't know how many times, assassination science, murder in Dealey Plaza, how many witnesses, Parkland Hospital, that.
The great Zapruder film hoax, but also many articles and, videos.
Magnificent graphic, that you have with everybody, going like this, it's like, hello.
If Mrs. Kennedy was not asked about the meaning of this statement, all we can do is surmise her statement. But from the back, you can see, you were trying to hold his hair on and his skull on. Really, what she said was, I was having a difficult time holding his skull and brains together at the back of his head. That's what she said. So even this is paraphrased. She wouldn't have said, but from the back, you could see, you were trying to, it was she who was trying to hold it. So even this is a paraphrase, Larry.
Yeah.
And she said from the front, he looked just fine. This observation is totally consistent with other witnesses, the Dallas doctors, and motion pictures taken at the scene. It's totally inconsistent with the low nut scenario. Therefore, it was not printed. It was indicative of a wound of exit in the rear of the president's head, meaning, therefore, a shot from the front of the motorcade. Taste was not in question in this testimony. What was in question was the government's no conspiracy theory of the assassination. The revealing portion of Mrs. Kennedy's testimony could not be published.
Yeah, of course.
In 2001, Mark Sobel wrote this great article in the JFK Journal, Assassination Chronicles, Volume 7, Number 2, where he deciphered the actual stenographer's tape, which left absolutely no doubt about what Jackie said.
Let me put that up here real quick because, okay. This is the actual article, okay, on Sobel, okay, and it was published in 2001, okay, and hold on. Oops. Where is
That's by JFK Lancer.
Yeah. You believe that? Hold on. So I lost my mousey here for a second. Okay. So this is the actual stenographer. This is what accompanies that article. This is the stenographer's tape. That machine, that they where they're typing.
Yeah.
Everything. And this is over here on the right where Sobel actually deciphered, apparently he knew somebody who knew how, what the symbols were and how you interpret them. And this is the actual tape, Jim. I could see it.
This is fascinating, Larry.
Yeah. I'd never seen this before. And obviously had I seen this, I would have included it here in this post, and it tells you everything that was suppressed by the Warren Commission on that, in her testimony. And everything is here, Jim. Everything is here, exactly. And again, this only came out. This came out 9 years later, after the assassination. And I think this is fascinating. Like you say, Jim. This is how it actually came out.
And she's talking about this portion of his skull, and you remember it was flesh-colored with little ridges at the top.
Yeah.
You can see little ridges in the Harper fragment, for example.
Yes, of course.
Can y'all read what it says?
Well, I was reading most of it.
Yeah, well, he got most of it here, but
okay.
Mainly what we've already covered here.
So I decided, this is now Larry, so I decided to look for more evidence of the blood and frames adjacent to 343. Here are two that show her white glove growing out of JFK's skull. Notice the wrap around of the head where, again, her white glove provides a perfect background as noted above.
Okay, this is probably, Jim, I'd say 339, 340.
Yeah.
Okay, and as you can see, just barely her hand is coming up, but you can already see the skull, is wrapped.
It's a major defect, defect.
It's already wrapped around her hand, and then this one is really telling here because you can see right here. And then,
you get a sense of the depth of it.
Oh yeah, right. And then because here you can see where her hand is more vertical in a diagonal fashion. And then when I started to just trace it, okay, and going around it, just give you an idea of how big the defect was in the back of the head, which confirms the earlier work on 343. And then I sort of gave you an indication here of where the actual skull should have been.
Right. That's good, Larry. That's good to see how massive it is, a defect. Yes.
Yeah. So just in case,
is there any more to this, or is this where you ended?
No, this is where I ended. I don't think I need to, do anything.
It's got to be somebody who feels his reputation is at stake if he doesn't respond. I would not be surprised if it were either Robert Groden or Josiah Thompson, or who's that guy who ran that other forum, the Deep Politics Forum? He could also do it too.
No.
None of the above.
Jefferson Marley?
No. I'll tell you in private, Jim.
You're not going to tell us, but it's on the forum, right?
Yeah, it's on the forum. Here, let me.
Larry, you can tell us, for God's sake. This isn't a state secret.
Here, I'll show you the inbox where I actually received this. Here we go. You probably know this guy. It says,
Oh, boy.
Joey Montana has just posted a reply to a topic.
I've not seen it. I'm still seeing the images, Larry.
Oh, okay.
Flip to your inbox.
Okay. I see. Let me stop the share and do it again.
Yeah.
Want to do pause?
Oh, it could be someone like Bradford, of course. He's a classic case. He would do something stupid like this.
No. Can you see this?
Yeah, now we're going to.
Okay, see the name at the top here?
Joey Montana. Great.
Here.
Did Greg Burnham publish this?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. This is embarrassing beyond words.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm shocked, Frank.
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
No, actually, he's just passing the information on to me, Jim.
Oh, was it Burnham who authored it?
No. He says, hey, by the way, Joey Montana, hey, Joey, is that really Tony Montana from Scarface? Or, Joey Montana.
Joe Montana from the San Francisco 49ers.
49ers, yeah, it's the old 49ers quarterback, yeah.
Do we know the true identity of Joey Montana?
Yeah, well, he's the one that says, I can see the possibility of it, but my first impression is that, look, I have no beef here with Greg,
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, him and I, just don't.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
Well, he and I got along extremely well, up to the point that we were talking about the identity of the man in the doorway.
I know, yeah.
And he was insisting that it was too small a part of the image, to make any sense. And get this, his proof that he was right, he brought in his wife, who knows nothing about any of this, and asked her, could she figure out who that was in the doorway? And she said no, and I called him on it. I said that was completely inappropriate, even absurd to do that, to put her in that predicament. And he's never forgiven me for faulting him for that.
Yeah.
As though we were looking at it without, blowing up the image and discussing it. He denies you can even see that there were alterations to that area in the photograph.
Yeah, what's the most heavily guarded secret in JFK is Oswald in the doorway.
That's right. So anyway, that's the combination.
That's good, Larry. That's good.
I thought, somebody.
I like it. Good work. Joey Montana.
It incited me to go and look at, the other frames. And so I'm glad that this was brought to my attention, actually.
Well, I'm glad you brought in Jackie's testimony, too.
Oh, yeah, I know, because it's devastating. I mean, it tells you exactly, that there could have been no way that she could have supported, that she could have covered there and pushed off the way he's saying there, And
you see how your work, my work, David's work on the x-rays, and Jackie's testimony all fit together hand in glove.
And another observation, don't you think that glove would have been, soaked in blood, okay? Had that really been the case? Really? You know, and the glove.
Oh, you mean if she'd actually had her hand on his head?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this guy's not real smart. I mean, he's trying to, he's exceeding himself by some considerable margin and attempting to deal with you.
That's his claim to fame, Jim.
Yeah. That's Joey Montana's claim to fame?
Yeah.
Okay, Don, yeah, sure. If you got a blog post. Gary, did you have to take a break? You're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, let's take a little quick break. I'm going to get a little water. This is JFK Show number 199. All right, welcome back to JFK Show number 199, and we're going to play a game. Name this instrument. Go ahead, Dr. Fetzer. What is it?
Oh, Gary, I've heard the name of it, but it's not at the tip of my tongue. I'm not going to be able to give you the answer.
Lee could have been playing one in Russia. It's a balalaika, Russian instrument.
Oh, I was going to say.
Oh, yeah, the Beatles actually mentioned it.
Yeah, back in the USSR. And this was a commemorative of the 1980 Olympic Games in Moscow.
I love it.
It's the U.S. boycotted because of Iran.
There you go. All right, so we got Don Fox.
Iran recapturing, taking the American embassy when they took back their country after the U.S. coup of 1953.
I'm sorry, because of that.
Boycott them when they are simply regaining their freedom from us, taken from them by us, by the U.S.
I misstated the reason. It was because of the invasion of Afghanistan by Russia. That's why the U.S. That's why Jimmy Carter's government boycotted the Olympics.
Okay, I get it.
So Don, you go ahead and put up your presentation.
Okay, it's not my blog post. It's here. I'll put the link here in the chat. But yeah, I thought this was interesting, so I figured we could go over this. It kind of leads into what I want to talk about.
You got to get rid of the Zoom thing there, Gary.
Yeah. Just clear the page. Okay, Don, you want me to work it? Go ahead.
Yeah, I can read it.
Wide awake Gentile.
Yep.
Love it.
Okay, tell me when we're rolling.
We're rolling.
We've been rolling the whole time.
Yeah.
All right.
You're allowed to eat ham.
Okay, so this is a blog post that was brought to my attention a couple, 3 weeks ago.
Katie Holmes has a very nice posterior, but I think this picture should never have been put out there. I mean, it's just
it's bigger than Jackie's though.
So inappropriate.
Yeah.
And it gives people have actually sent me this as though that were a real photograph from the assassination.
Yeah. She looks like she's twerking.
Look. Yeah, well, this is really not what I wanted to spend any time on.
Sorry, Don.
Distance to the Queen Mary, Jim. Look at the distance to the Queen Mary.
Yeah,
well,
that's
okay,
ridiculous.
so
They were both stopped at the time. According.
Yeah,
They really think Clint Hill was rushing up when the vehicle was moving like 11 miles an hour? How fast does he think? A 4 minute mile is quite significant, and he's going to be doing much faster. I mean, give us a break.
Okay, so the name of the blog post that we're talking about here, it's called Lyndon Johnson and James Angleton, the Crypto Jews Who Ruled America. And this is on wideawakegentile.wordpress.com back from January 6th or 8th of 2016.
Hey, Don, just a parenthesis here. James Angleton's second name, his middle name, you know what it was?
Jesus.
Jesus, actually. Okay, so you can scoot down, Gary.
Okay, you want to play the video?
No. I haven't even watched the video. I don't know what's in it. So here's assassinated President Kennedy's replacement was Vice President Lyndon Baines Johnson.
The original negative is the only one missing from this sequence from the Johnson Library.
Yep.
Why would that be?
Gee.
So
I've been winking at you over successfully taking out your predecessor so you can become president of the United States. I wonder why you wouldn't want that one. You'd think that would be the first image you'd want you to see when you came into the library.
the for people that are listening, there are people that just listen to these MP3s. They don't get to see the videos.
Yeah. Well, that's Congressman Thomas winking at Lyndon for his success.
Thomas, and let's not forget that that's one of the reasons that JFK supposedly went to Texas, because Al Thomas had cancer and they wanted to, try to patch things up, before he died. Look at him winking there.
Yeah.
So
He had a miraculous recovery, Larry.
Yeah, well, Lady Bird looks all tore up.
Yeah.
The caption on the photo says, "Sad America, happy Jews." Johnson reportedly winking at accomplice while wife Lady Bird smiles after Kennedy's assassination. So she's in the catbird seat.
It's a bit of a grimace. I don't know if I'd call it a smile.
Yeah. No, I would have loved to.
It's closer to positive than negative.
I would have loved to have seen LBJ's face, from the other side. We had a camera on the other.
Yeah. He was smiling. He would be smiling.
Now that is a face of true distress that you don't see in all these fake shootings.
Well, that's the excuse that they use to do this old switcheroo on the body.
Yes, absolutely. They're changing the body out while she's standing there next to LBJ, and he insisted that she come. She didn't want to come.
He insisted that she be present for the.
She still had blood splattered all over her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so then the post goes on to say that
it wasn't just that JFK was set to pick. He'd already extended the invitation to Stuart Simon, and he just gave him overnight to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the post goes on to say Lyndon Johnson and the Kennedys hated each other. So why was LBJ even put on the 1960 demo ticket in the first place? The old wives' tale is that it was to balance the ticket and win electoral votes of Texas. The reality is that JFK was set to pick U.S. Senator Stuart Symington of Missouri and had already put in a deal with Symington to be VP that was signed, sealed, and delivered, according to Symington's campaign manager, Clark Clifford.
He was a formidable figure in and of himself.
Yes. Then something strange happened on the night of July 13th, 1960 in Los Angeles. According to Evelyn Lincoln, JFK's longtime secretary, LBJ and Sam Rayburn were using some of Hoover's blackmail information on John Kennedy to force JFK to put Johnson on the ticket in a hostile takeover of the vice presidency. LBJ and Hoover were very close and literally neighbors for 19 years in Washington, D.C. from 1943 to 1961. Both men were also plugged in socially and professionally to Texas oil executives. Lyndon Johnson's maternal ancestors, the Huffmans, apparently migrated to Frederick, Maryland from Germany sometime in the late 18th century. Later, they moved to Bourbon, Kentucky, and eventually settled in Texas in the mid to late 19th century. And according to Jewish law, if a person's mother is Jewish, then that person is automatically Jewish, regardless of the father's ethnicity or religion. The facts indicate that both of Lyndon Johnson's great-grandparents on the maternal side were Jewish. These were grandparents of Lyndon's mother, Rebecca Baines, and their names were John S. Huffman and Mary Elizabeth Perrin. John Huffman's mother was Suzanne Ament, a common Jewish name. Perrin is also a common Jewish name. Huffman and Perrin had a daughter, Ruth Ament Huffman, who married Joseph Baines, and together they had a daughter, Rebecca Baines. And it's spelled R-E-B-E-K-A-H, Baines.
Yeah.
Lyndon Johnson's mother.
Old Testament.
So the line of Jewish mothers can be traced back 3 generations in Lyndon Johnson's family tree. There is little doubt that he was Jewish.
Gary, move it.
Mother, Rebecca Baines, married Sam Houston, Sam Johnson, Lyndon's father.
Larry's got a question, Don.
Go ahead, Larry.
Gary, scroll it.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah, were you finished reading? There we go. Sorry, I was looking for my bell.
I've got it up on my other monitor because I don't trust Gary. So.
All right.
Okay. All right. And thanks. Let's see.
Mother Rebecca Baines.
Yeah, Rebecca Baines. Lyndon Johnson's mother. The line of Jewish mothers can be traced back 3 generations. Okay, little doubt he was Jewish. Mother Rebecca Baines married Sam Johnson, Lyndon's father. Maternal grandparents, Ruth Ament Huffman and Joseph Baines. Maternal great-grandparents, parents of Ruth Huffman, Mary Elizabeth Perrin and John S. Huffman III. Lyndon Johnson's wife, Claudia Alta Taylor Johnson, aka Lady Bird, is apparently a Sephardic Jew of Mexican origin. Although her facial features are consistent with Semitic origin, that alone is not a definitive proof. Claudia's mother, Minnie Lee Patillo, was likely a Sephardic Jew from Mexico. Patillo is a common Spanish-Mexican name. Historians have revealed that Johnson, while serving as a young congressman in 1938 and 39, arranged for visas to be supplied to Jews in Warsaw and oversaw the apparently illegal immigration of hundreds of Jews through the port of Galveston, Texas. And if you want to scroll down.
Yeah, are those his parents? Let's look at this.
No, that's Aunt Jessie Johnson Hatcher, member of the American Zionist Association. So,
Okay.
Don't rush it, Gary. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. No. Key resource. Go ahead.
So, a key resource for uncovering LBJ's pro-Jewish activity is the unpublished 1989 doctoral thesis by University of Texas student Louis Gomelak, entitled Prologue, LBJ's Foreign Affairs Background, 1908 to 1948. Johnson's activities were confirmed by other historians in interviews with his wife, family members, and political associates. Research into Johnson's personal history indicates that he inherited his concerns from the Jewish people from his family.
All right, we need to get a copy of this dissertation. By the way, they're all technically published because they're bound and put into a library. That's part of the process of obtaining a PhD. So this ought to be available. Where did he obtain his PhD?
What school is it?
University of Texas, probably. Yeah, University of Texas, yeah.
Austin?
Yeah, Austin, yeah. We need to obtain that a copy of that dissertation.
Okay, well, we'll work on that.
Yeah, because you're right there, Don.
Yep. I will.
Go to the archives. Go to the archives of the library of the University of Texas and get a copy of that dissertation.
Yeah.
Okay. His aunt, Jessie Johnson Hatcher, a major influence on LBJ, was a member of the Zionist Organization of America.
No, you skipped a paragraph. You didn't. A key resource. Well, read it again, would you please?
Okay, I'll read it again. A key resource for uncovering LBJ's pro-Jewish activity is the unpublished 1989 doctoral thesis by University of Texas student Louis Gomelak, Prologue, LBJ's Foreign Affairs Background, 1908 to 1948. Johnson's activities were confirmed by other historians in interviews with his wife, family members, and political associates. Research into Johnson's personal history indicates that he inherited his concern for the Jewish people from his family. His aunt.
That's a little ambiguous, inherited, meaning because it's not genetic. It's going to be, that's a cultural, that's an acquisition, something you learn or acquire during your development. He acquired or absorbed or learned or whatever.
It's learned, yeah. It's learned. It's learned, and his aunt Jessie Johnson Hatcher, a major influence on LBJ, was a member of the Zionist Organization of America. According to Gomelak, Aunt Jessie had nurtured LBJ's commitment to befriending Jews for 50 years. As a young boy, Lyndon watched his politically active grandfather, Big Sam, and father, Little Sam, seek clemency for Leo Frank, the Jewish victim.
Really?
Yeah, the Jewish victim of a blood libel in Atlanta, or the Jew pedophile murderer, depending on how you view it. Yeah, Leo Frank was a Jewish pedophile.
I did a show on Leo Frank. I know about the Leo Frank case.
Yeah. Frank was lynched by a mob in 1915, and the Ku Klux Klan in Texas threatened to kill the Johnsons. Obviously, the Klan knew more about the Johnsons than the rest of America did.
Wow.
Already in 1934, Johnson was keenly alert to the dangers of Nazism and presented a book of essays, Nazism, an assault on civilization. And Nazism is a derogatory term, coined by a Jew.
Don't give it the straight scoop.
Okay, so if somebody's calling somebody a Nazi,
just go ahead. We know.
We'll discuss later.
To the 21-year-old woman he was courting, Claudia Taylor, later known as Lady Bird Johnson, 5 days after taking office in 1937, LBJ broke with the Dixiecrats and supported an immigration bill that would naturalize illegal aliens, mostly Jews from Lithuania and Poland. That same year, LBJ warned Jewish friend Jim Novy that European Jews faced annihilation. According to historian James M. Smallwood, Congressman Johnson used legal and sometimes illegal methods to smuggle hundreds of Jews into Texas, using Galveston as the entry port. He hid them in the Texas National Youth Administration. Johnson saved at least 400 or 500 Jews, possibly more. During World War II, Johnson joined Novy at a small Austin gathering to sell $65,000 in war bonds. According to Gomelak, Novy and Johnson then raised a very substantial sum for arms of Jewish underground fighters in Palestine. One source cited by the historian reports that Novy and Johnson had been secretly shipping heavy crates labeled Texas grapefruit, but containing arms to Jewish underground freedom fighters in Palestine.
Actually, weapons and arms.
Yep. A decade later, while serving in the Senate, Johnson blocked the Eisenhower administration's attempt to apply sanctions against Israel following the 1956 Sinai campaign. Among Johnson's closest advisors during this period were several strong pro-Israel advocates, including Benjamin Cohen, coincidence, who 30 years earlier was the liaison between the Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis and Chaim Weizmann, and Abe Fortas, the legendary Washington insider. Johnson had close ties with Jewish mobster Meyer Lansky, real name Meir Sukachalski. He had a long and sordid record of involvement in criminal activities, including murder, that have finally begun to surface. One major Johnson backer was Meyer Lansky's Louisiana henchman, Carlos Marcello. According to John W. Davis, Lansky's man, Marcello, funneled at least $50,000 a year in payoffs to then Texas Senator Lyndon Johnson, who in turn helped kill in committee all rackets-related legislation that might have been harmful to the Lansky organized crime. John Davis, Mafia Kingfish.
Yeah, that's the book. That's the source. That's the source.
Yeah, that's just the source. Yeah. Let's see. When Lansky's crony Benjamin Sigelbaum was involved with longtime Johnson intimate Bobby Baker in two major dealings: purchase of a bank in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Baker's controversial Serve You vending machine company. Okay, that must be another citation. Okay, and then Kennedy's death. One, removed from the White House, a president who had reached a bitter impasse with Israel over its steadfast determination to assemble a nuclear arsenal.
David Ben-Gurion.
Yep. Two, completely reversed long-standing U.S. Middle East policy and placed the United States firmly in Israel's camp with a vengeance.
That was a policy of neutrality between the parties in conflict.
Allowed Lyndon Johnson to reverse JFK's Vietnam policy and begin escalating U.S. involvement in Southeast Asia. This permitted Israel to advance its own geopolitical stance in the Middle East.
Elaborate on that. How did escalating Vietnam give Israel cover in the Middle East?
Well, I guess maybe a misdirection. That's an angle. I hadn't studied the Vietnam War. I had 20 years ago. I haven't looked at it, recently. So.
Look, I'm finding all this completely fascinating. This is all stuff about Johnson I had not known. I think it's very important to understand why, for example, he would be willing to sink the USS Liberty in order to give a feigned excuse to draw the U.S. into the side of Israel in the war with Egypt, which was totally unnecessary because Moshe Dayan was a brilliant general and, mopped things up in just 6 days. Hence the name. But this is all very significant stuff you've got here, Don.
Again, I'm not the author of this blog post.
Yeah, no, I get it, but you're reporting it.
Yeah,
Down to point number 4.
Enabled Israel's allies in the CIA and the Meyer Lansky organized crime syndicate to gain a lock on drug trafficking in Southeast Asia as a proximate result of U.S. involvement in the region.
Yeah, answers your question right there.
Yep. Green summarizes the massive extent of Johnson's giveaways. 70% of all U.S. official assistance to Israel has been military. America has given Israel over $17 billion in military aid since 1946, virtually all of which, over 99%, has been provided since 1965.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might want to read that one again.
Yep. The crafting of UN Resolution 242 in November 1967 was done under Johnson's scrutiny. The call resolution opposed Israel's returning all the territories captured in the war. Goldberg later noted, Resolution 242 in no way refers to Jerusalem, and this omission was deliberate. Johnson thought nothing of sacrificing 67 American lives in the USS Liberty attack as long as his beloved Israel was not caught out in the attack and was not shown for what it really was, a deliberate false flag to blame the Arabs and get the U.S. into a war. LBJ reportedly told Admiral Geist that he did not give a damn if the ship sank. He would not embarrass an ally, Israel. There are some who say it was Johnson who actually ordered the attack to blame the Arabs and join Israel in a Mideast war, or at least had forewarning.
This is entirely plausible. No stretch there whatsoever.
Yeah, there's some opinion out there that they were going to sink the USS Liberty and then use that as a pretext to nuke Cairo. And in fact, the plane was in the air and it was called back with just minutes to spare.
Yes.
So here's a small Indian link to Johnson's crypto Jewishness. Fori Nehru, aka Magdalena Friedman, was the Jewish wife of, there's a name for you, Jawaharlal Nehru's cousin B.K. Nehru. She met Johnson during her stay in the U.S. as part of Indira Gandhi's, Nehru's daughter, entourage to the U.S. During the presidency of Lyndon Johnson, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi traveled to the U.S. Johnson was bowled over by her. At a dinner hosted by Ambassador B.K. Nehru and Fori in honor of Indira, Johnson dropped in unannounced. Dinner time approached, but the president refused to leave, leading to a protocol crisis as the dinner was not meant for him. Finally, Fori, in her unique way, asked, "Mr. President, why don't you join us for dinner?" Johnson readily agreed. Fori promptly dropped. President Johnson's firmly pointed American policy in a pro-Israel direction. In a historical context, the American emergency airlift to Israel in 1973, the constant diplomatic support and the economic and military assistance, and the strategic bonds between the two countries can all be credited to the seeds planted by LBJ.
We don't need a commentary, but that's very significant. Yeah. Did you want to continue about James Jesus Angleton?
It is fairly lengthy.
Gary, how are we doing on our time?
We got a few minutes left. You can kind of see.
Well,
Plus, we have a few minutes besides that, so we're doing okay.
I guess we could start on it, and maybe we can circle back. If we run over or whatever.
So this guy was a very significant player, all things considered. Yeah, let's run over an hour. It doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not like there's a show on right after us on the network. James Jesus Angleton, CIA counterintelligence head, 1951 to 1974, so 23 years. James Jesus Angleton was born in Boise, Idaho, to James Hugh Angleton and Carmen Mercedes Moreno in 1917. His parents met in Mexico while his father was a cavalry officer serving under General John Pershing. His Mexican mother, Moreno, was a crypto-Jewess. Moreno is a common Jewish surname, Jewish Encyclopedia, Jewish surname.
Yeah, you don't have to read this source.
Yeah. He joined the U.S. Army in March 1943, and in July married Cecilie D. Atremont, a Vassar alumna from Tucson, Arizona. Together they had 3 children, James C. Angleton, Guru Sankat, Karu Khalsa, and Surihari Kar Angleton Kalasa. Wow. There's a. I just get Larry to pronounce that. Angleton's father's contacts got him into Yale, where he didn't do too well. Later on during the war, his father's contacts resulted in being recruited into the Office of Strategic Services, or the OSS, in London.
So he actually didn't graduate from Yale?
No, he dropped out.
I'm not sure. He said he attended there.
Oh, he didn't do too well. That certainly implies he did not graduate.
Yeah. Angleton next served in the X2 unit in Rome, where he was codenamed Artifice. He rose to be chief of all X2 operations in Italy by the end of the war. When the OSS disbanded in 1945, Angleton stayed in Italy to run operations for the successor organizations to OSS. Angleton worked closely with Jewish underground activities in both London and Italy, and worked in the Corsican Mafia and the Sicilian Mafia intelligence operations during these same years and thereafter. Returning to Washington, he was employed by various successor organizations to the OSS, eventually becoming one of the founder officers of the Central Intelligence Agency. In May 1949, he was made head of staff of the CIA's Office of Special Operations, where he was responsible for the collection of foreign intelligence and liaison with the CIA's counterpart organizations. Beginning in 1951, Angleton was responsible for liaison with Israel's Mossad and Shin Bet agencies, the Israeli desk, crucial relationships that managed for the remainder of his career.
That's very, very, very significant.
Yeah, well, it tells you where Angleton's loyalties lied. Admiration for the Jewish state became an obsession with Angleton, who fell captive to the magic of Israeli intelligence, wrote Dan Raviv and Yossi Melman in their 1990 History of the Mossad. And such was the debt of gratitude felt by the Israelis that in November 1987, after Angleton's death, Jerusalem Mayor Teddy Kollek and then Defense Minister Yitzhak Rabin dedicated a memorial corner of a park not far from the King David Hotel, where there's an inscription in English, Hebrew, and Arabic, in memory of a dear friend, James Jim Angleton.
Wow.
In 1954, Alan Dulles, who had recently become Director of Central Intelligence, named Angleton head of the counterintelligence staff, a position that Angleton retained for the rest of his CIA career. Angleton played a big role in the assassination of Kennedy. In fact, may have even played a part in Kennedy being blackmailed into picking LBJ as his vice president.
I don't see why Angleton would have had anything to do with that. I do think that Hoover provided him the information, and that Sam Rayburn was involved in this. Don, I think you've done it. I think you've done enough. I don't want you to go further with this tonight.
Yeah, and we're basically out of time.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about right there as well.
Yeah. So yeah,
the point is you've established two very, very significant aspects of a situation that I at least had not heretofore understood, namely that Lyndon Johnson really did have a history that he was not only genetically Jewish, but that he had taken active steps to support the Jews in multiple different venues, and appears to have been already receiving financing from Israel as a senator. And second, that James Jesus Angleton also not only had a Jewish background, but he ran the Israeli desk and was obviously tight with the Mossad and Shin Bet. This is very significant on multiple counts. So I'm indebted to you for bringing this up, Don.
Yeah,
well,
Larry.
Thanks a lot, Jim. And this is kind of setting the stage for some stuff we've got coming in future shows. I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Right. We did have a comment. Someone said, well, hey, that wasn't about JFK, what Don was talking about. I said, well, wait till next week and you'll see.
Well, but of course it's about JFK. It's setting up much of background. I'm glad for this. I think it's valuable.
Well, we all know.
Do you have anything to add?
We all know that Angleton is the one that ran the fake defector program, where Lee Oswald was involved.
Right. So he would have been in a position to manage Lee and probably even his assignments for all that.
Yeah.
With David Atlee Phillips. I'll bet Angleton and Phillips were very, very tight because, Angleton with counter-espionage and Phillips running the Western Hemisphere for the CIA, and Phillips was directing Lee, there's no doubt.
And don't you think that it was Angleton who probably personally debriefed Lee when he came back from Russia?
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, just like a glove. All you have to do is look at our foreign policy today, and it all started with LBJ. All right, this is the new JFK show, number 199. We'll be back with show number 200 next week.